Welcome back to another episode. What's on the playlist today? Today we're going to talk about James Taylor's first album, self-titled James Taylor, of which there'll be an image of uh, right here. Let's talk about JT for a bit. This album is interesting in a way because um, James Taylor, he was 20 years old when he did this. He'd already been struggling with heroin addiction. At this point in his life, he already called his father for help, not for money, just to put him in rehab. You know, um, he was that self-aware that he was having problems with heroin addiction. Just called his dad, said, "Dad, I need help." His dad drove out to get him, put him in rehab. At this point, he was out of rehab, but still struggling with the addiction. First time being a solo artist, he'd been in bands previously. Through someone that he knew, previously working in the music industry, playing in small bands and stuff in around Boston and New York, in California, introduced him to a guy named his name was James. Last name was Asher. I think it was James Asher, but who knew the Beatles. So he was in London, got introduced to this Asher guy, played him some music. Asher took him to meet the Beatles, played Something in the Way She Moves for them. They loved it, signed him to their brand new record label, Apple Records. So James Taylor was the first artist signed to the Beatles' new Apple record label, and this was the first album the Beatles ever published under their own label. So a little musical history there, kind of cool stuff. The album itself had a few singles that did well. Something the Way She Moves, Caroline on My Mind, and Rainy Day Man are the three that probably did best. The album was a critical success, but didn't do that well financially. People suspected because James Taylor didn't do much to promote it because of his drug problem. So, as a debut album, I mean, everyone who spoke about it said it was an amazing album, and it is. You have to figure this song is this album is full of songs that are calm and thoughtful and about the simple things in life. And there's a lot of depth to the lyrics. And he's 20 years old and struggling with drug addiction. You wouldn't think someone who was bombed off his mind on heroin could write stuff like this, and yet he consistently does. And JT has been very open about his struggles with drug addiction throughout his life. Throughout his career and stuff. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to do JT is for the playlist this time was that my wife and I went to see him recently. Our daughter had got my wife tickets for her birthday, so we went to see him perform in concert. And he's still a good performer. It helps that he's 75, but it helps that his music isn't energetic. He's not like the Rolling Stones or some punk rock band or something. So he can come on stage, stand there, and just play his instrument and sing. His voice has changed, but it's still good to go hear him sing live. James Taylor is one of the few performers I've actually seen more than once. Coincidentally, I've only paid for tickets once. My mother took me for my birthday when I was a teenager. I paid for one set of tickets myself before I met my wife. My older sister took me for a surprise for my 50th birthday. And this recent time, our daughter bought my wife tickets. So yeah, I've seen him 4 times and only paid for tickets once. So good deal there. Certainly got my money's worth out of him. I'm not sure if I would classify JT as one of my favorite, as my favorite artist, but he's certainly up there. The last couple concerts that I've gone to, surprisingly, being there, I'm an introvert. I don't like crowds, don't particularly like the expensive concerts and stuff, but for some reason, I realized when my sister took me to see him for my 50th that sitting in the concert in that situation, I felt peace. You know, for some reason or other, just like this all stopped, and I felt at peace for the first time in a long time that I can remember. Just, you know, all the noise went away. And like, again, introvert, don't like crowds. I don't necessarily feel that way just listening to the albums, but something about the experience of being there in a concert just brought me peace. And the same thing happened when my wife and I went, you know, a couple of weeks ago. Um, you know, I'd like to meet James Taylor and shake his hand and say thank you, you know, for the years of music and for that sensation, you know, of just, you know, that for something about being in the concert did more for me mentally and spiritually than, you know, anything has in a long time. So, you know, I wanted to talk about that, about him himself. You know, he is a good performer. He engages with the audience. He's funny. He tells good stories. I learn things about him when the stories that he tells every time I go see him. You know, he tells stuff about his life that you know, it's not on Wikipedia. It's not, you know, it's little stuff, little details that he tells about his life that I enjoy. You know, it's almost like meeting him, although it's kind of not, because he's on a stage. He's like this big on stage, and I'm way back there because I can't afford the good seats. But he puts on a great show for the music that he plays, and I like his music. I almost always have. This is one of the albums that I grew up with. It was one of the albums that my parents had in their collection. My parents didn't have a lot of spare music, but they had a couple of JT albums. So yeah, this is something I grew up listening to, and I've always liked it. So that's what's on the playlist today. As always, thanks for watching. If you like this video, I don't know what to tell you. Until next time, good hunting.